Every month there is a ton of new mobile games, and every month gameranx sorts through them to find the best ones to try. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the best free iOS and Android games of February 2019. Number 10 is Evolution, the video game, which is a take on the North Star Games board game. The idea is to create animals that can thrive, adapt, evolve, and live in an ecosystem that never stays the same. This is a good-looking board game. Some board games are very simple. This one contains a lot of beautiful art and manages to feel like a board game while not feeling cheap. And that's not to say all board games are cheap on the phone, but I think we know at least a couple of them, as those of us who like to try out various games. What I particularly like about this game is how well the online multiplayer works. I didn't participate in any of the ongoing seasonal tournaments, but I did find the matchmaking to be intuitive, quick, and setting up a game with a friend was very easy. I am by no means an expert at this board game. I didn't play the board game, but I have to say I really enjoyed it. It's based a lot in strategy. There is card drawing, so I am sure you can understand at least some of the mechanics just right off, but there is stuff to master as well. Speaking of the cards, there's a nice variety. Obviously, this is a game about evolving. That's the point, and it does deliver on that. Evolution is out on both iOS and Android. Check it out. Number 9 is Jaws.io, or perhaps Jawsio. I don't know if that's how you say it. This is a casual multiplayer shark simulating game, I guess. The actual description of the gameplay itself is going to elude a little bit. It does remind me of a lot of the .io type games, except for it is a lot more graphically enticing, as in it clearly had some money spent on the art department, and it stands up to a lot of the more, I guess what we would designate as the AAA mobile games. It is a game from Universal Studios, so I mean, that's why. And it's also why there is a game about Jaws, because they own that. Basically, what you have to do, you ride around in a boat rescuing people, and of course that is prompt to get the bigger boat, as per the joke in the film. That's used all over the promotional material for this game. You're going to need a bigger boat. But there's also a Jaws mode, in which you play as the shark. Basically, you go after people in that mode. It's exactly what it sounds like. You play as Jaws in one of these IO type games. However, I'm gonna say the polish and the fact that this feels so smooth and well done, that's pretty much the selling point here. I think this is one of the better done examples of this sort of multiplayer arcade survival type action games, I guess. It's hard to categorize these, but we've played a few of this type of game, and I think this is a better example of it than quite a few of the others. It's available on iOS and Android. I would definitely recommend it, especially considering it's a good game with a movie license, and that's rare. Number 8 is Noa Noa, a monster collecting and training game. If you remember the old Tamagotchi games, it's very similar to that. The premise of the game is you're an employee of Noa Inc., where you find, hatch, and raise rare digital creatures with quirky personalities and mysterious abilities. Yes, that is the official description of the game, and I would say it's accurate. It's quite a bit of fun. I enjoy it. It reminds me a lot of Tamagotchi, and that's in a very good way. There are a few other aspects of it. You get to create an avatar. There's sort of a company dynamic that I honestly don't love because it kind of sits there and demeans you. It's humorous, but it's also kind of like, I could enjoy this without that. But I don't think it gets in the way of the actual gameplay, which is not complex by any stretch, but it is fun. And it is nostalgic. It did definitely remind me of a time that has been long gone. Noa Noa is available currently on iOS. It's free. And if you miss Tamagotchi, this is something you gotta try. Period. Number 7 is Snow Kids, a platformer that has very cutesy graphics, but don't make the mistake of thinking that it is a purely simple game. It inherits some of its best elements from Mega Man, from Mario, and it's got beautiful graphics and fun, bouncy music. Now, I mean bouncy in terms of like NES style music rather than bouncy in terms of Kids Bop. so keep that in mind. Honestly, this is a really well-designed game. I enjoyed the levels. I think that they are not the most complex you're ever going to see, but you will be reminded in more than a few moments of some of the better levels in Mario as well as Mega Man. I think that these are probably the two main sources of inspiration for this game. Not artistically speaking, I would say it has a pretty distinct style all to itself, but I definitely have to say it's a great game. I enjoy the heck out of it. It's on iOS and Android right now. Number 6 is Rebel Inc., which comes to us from Endemic, the same developer that brought us Plague Inc. This one's maybe a little bit less grim, and actually gives you a lot of tools that are based around creating stability in a region, or outright just kind of being a dick. This is a game that actually deals with a lot of stuff that goes on in the real world and handles it very similarly. Like, for instance, rejecting refugees will cause international anger. The game basically depicts how difficult it might be rebuilding a country after a war, and it tries to handle it sensitively and realistically, which is good. I think it nails it pretty well. This is a good game. It's definitely different, and there's stuff that isn't entirely conventional for the board game type interface it has, but I like that. It's available on iOS and Android. Like I said, it's free to start on Android, but it costs money up front on iOS. Keep in mind there is an eventual purchase, but I think it's worth it to at least mention it here. I think you'll get a pretty fair amount of fun out of the free content. Number 5 is Alliance vs. Empire, an MMORPG that takes place in a large open world. And let's just be clear, it's a nice looking open world. It manages to not use a super saturated color palette while still being in that fantasy, sort of modernized, simplified, but not oversimplified look. It kind of reminds me, look-wise, of Fable a little bit, at least the landscapes. And although it does offer a story, I think really the best stuff is your co-op and competitive play, and that's kind of what it needs to be. MMORPGs are built around doing the same things over and over in some respects, so those things need to be enjoyable, and Alliance vs. Empire, I think, definitely nails that. I don't think you'll find anything that alienates you if you like MMORPGs. The gameplay style isn't too far off, but it does add in little 4x4 player factions, large-scale PvP battles. I also think it handles raids pretty well. And as far as seeing an MMORPG on a phone, this is basically what I would want. This game does really contain a sort of a fluidity both in controlling and in gameplay that really, I think, shines out above the expectation you would have for an MMORPG on a phone. The progression is a little standard, but that's a minor complaint. I think that really over time the game is probably only going to get better, and honestly, I could play this on a console or the PC as well. It's a good game. I enjoy it. It's out on iOS and Android. It's free, of course, so if you're interested in MMORPG and you don't stop here first, I don't know what you're doing. Number 4 is PPKP, which is not a catchy name, but this is a game you gotta try. It's a 2-button fighting game that isn't just focused on the fighting. There is also an element of rebuilding a broken city that has been destroyed by Monster Corps, maybe? I don't know. It doesn't talk at you. The whole idea is that you have to go around and fight monsters, and it's very simple in concept, but the fighting itself, though it's only 2 buttons, is deceptively nuanced and exhibits some really enjoyable depth. For instance, when you press a button, it may end up sort of spraying off into several sub-buttons, for lack of better terminology. It's a really good system. 1 button is for attacking, 1 button is for blocking, and although the game itself is not perfect for such a simple concept, it does an amazing job. Like, I am not going to say this game is going to change your life, but it is going to change your mind on, I think, complex control schemes. To some extent, I think this shows that you can do games with depth in a manner that is very fun with very simple controls. PPKP is free on iOS and Android. Number 3 is Revolve 8, and I am going to just go ahead and call this Sega's entry into the Clash Royale RTS Lite MOBA genre, because that's what this is. And it is a fun and very competent version of this type of game that brings us a few interesting changes in dynamics. For instance, We have a grid seeing where the characters can go from where they are, and we also have kind of special moves, which is wonderful, might I add. The special moves stop all the action and play a big goofy animation, which is very JRPG-esque, as are most of the graphics and sound effects and pretty much everything, and it really brings a different feel to this kind of 3-minute real-time strategy game that brings enough to the table that makes it worth trying out. I probably am going to play this one for a while. I think it's pretty darn good. You collect cards. Obviously, the more cards you have, the better the game is. It's the same with any Clash Royale type game. Give Revolve 8 a shot. It's free on iOS and Android. Number 2 is One Piece Bounty Rush, which is a battle arena treasure looting game, according to itself. It's basically capture the flag style games in 4x4 multiplayer, set in the One Piece universe, giving you all of the wild stuff going on in that. So you get all of the strange powers from that world, while giving you honestly a pretty fun battle arena style game that we aren't seeing a lot of at the moment. Most of it is battle royale, and frankly I think this works better for the fact that there are more hero-based powers than I think a battle royale would, and I wasted a lot of time with this. I definitely have to recommend you give it a go. One Piece Bounty Rush is available on iOS and Android now. Finally, number 1 is another Eden, which is really a phenomenal RPG. It is a turn-based JRPG set up in not entirely a way you would expect. There is a side-scrolling element to it, but I think that's more of an aesthetic thing because there's not really any platforming elements. It's just side-scrolling the way they've set up the movement. It is a space-time oriented RPG that comes to us from a lot of people that worked on Chrono Trigger. For instance, the scenario was written by Masato Kato, who worked on Chrono Trigger. One of the composers worked on Chrono Trigger, and frankly, it really embodies that feel. The graphics and art style are very different, of course, but I really enjoy it. Like, everything about this game is very enjoyable. If you like JRPGs at all, this is one you need to play. I do hope we see this on other platforms. It's that good of a game, because I think more people need to play it. As many people as possible need to check this one out. I love this game. It's awesome. Another Eden is currently out on iOS and Android. It's free. Seriously, play it. What iOS and Android games have you been playing this month? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. And if you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.